Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. So, I want Black people to know that each time you hear all these pro-Palestinians say Libra, they mean Black people. Now, there are news all over saying that speculating that Joe Biden never called for ceasefire. So they are blaming Black people that they were just defending Kamala Harris for nothing. And at the same time, blaming Black people for what is going on in Gaza and I mean, like the happenings like all over so far with this present administration. And I really do not know why they are blaming Black people because the last time I checked, Black people were the only ones that voted right. So why are they blaming Black people for who they chose to vote for? Now, how happy are you people with this present administration? Because you all are so quick to criticize Black people for no reason when I am not seeing you people relocate to Gaza to help them out. I am not seeing you people hit the street to protest for Gaza, but you all are online every day calling Black people and trying to mock them for who they choose to support. The fact that I see a lot of Black people supporting Palestinians, and I do not have any problem with people supporting Palestinians, but the fact that people would choose other people over themselves, over their own community, shows how wild or delusional some people are, right? And not just only supporting their own, supporting Palestinians and all that, talking ill about their own community. You know what? Let's get into this video.
If white people's response to the Black community calling them out on their racism is to elect a white supremacist, then it wasn't the fucking thing that I wanted to be a part of anyways. If white people's response to the Black community calling them out on their racism is to elect a white...
This is the take. No other words need to be said. He said it as clear as day. If white people's response to Black people pointing out racism was to elect a white supremacist, then you shouldn't, if you are an empathetic white person, want to be a part of that movement. And I might add, if you consider yourself an empathetic white person, you should not make any allowances or any safe spaces for anyone that's racist or anti-Black. White leftists, you know, the ones that are excusing anti-Blackness in your ranks. But he said that. That's the take.
I know this story is 2 days old. I've been sick and I've been working. Shut the fuck up. I still want to talk about this. Calling all the liberals to the front. Liberals, come here, come here, come here. Have a seat. Wait a minute. I thought Biden and Harris did call for a ceasefire and a two-state solution. You guys love that so much. Do you even know what that is? Yeah, they did. You know, on paper that apparently Israel never received. On stages, touring around the country to American citizens, American voters, so they can get people to vote for them. So they'll say things that people want to hear. Yeah, a ceasefire. We must end the violence, bring the hostages home, and help the other guys. What are they called? The yeah, sure, them. But not to Netanyahu, not to the Israeli government, because that's called being performative. And I know that you're all are fucking performative activists, and the politicians that you dick suck are also performative. So be performative. Entertain me. I want to hear the excuses. Why is this okay? Don't worry, he's not president anymore, so according to your logic, you can criticize him now. For the past year, before, during, and after the election, y'all have been at our throats saying that Biden and Harris were the best candidates for Gaza. They called for a ceasefire. They want a two-state solution. Again, let me know, why do you think that's a good thing? They didn't. And it was so obvious. We could have told you this months ago. Oh, wait. We were telling you this months ago. Gaza didn't look like how it is now. Tens of thousands of people weren't killed once Trump walked into office. That was happening before the election. Saying one thing and doing the other. Yeah, that's called lying, which y'all love to get on Trump supporters for. But you guys fall for lies too. Yeah, Democrats can lie too. So is it lying that's the bad thing? Or what letter is next to the name of the person that's lying? What color tie they wear on the fucking inauguration? And if your answer is the latter, then we're not getting out of this shithole.
Because at long last, I can announce a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached between Israel and Hamas. For more than 15 months of conflict, It began with Hezbollah's brutal massacre on October the 7th. More than 15 months of terror for the hostages, their families, the Israeli people. More than 15 months of suffering by the innocent people of Gaza. Fighting in Gaza will stop, and soon the hostages will return home to their families. Because it
It's going to upset some of the TikTok leftists. I'm a leftist, but not a TikTok leftist. But the fact that some of you guys are accepting this claim that the Biden admin never actually pushed for any sort of ceasefire, when the only source for that claim is a single Israeli journalist who claims that their source, as far as I can tell, is the Israeli government. And the fact that the people that, as far as I can tell, you're primarily going after and targeting are AOC and Bernie, the two people leading an anti-oligarchy tour. You're useful.
This is when I know that TikTok leftists are looking for confirmation bias for what they already negatively believe about Democrats, even Joe Biden. Because they get online sharing propaganda that's being spoon-fed to them by the Israeli government, by literal fucking oligarchs in Russia. The owner of the news station that a lot of these TikTok leftists are running and saying, look, this is what we were talking about. Biden never pressured Israel for a ceasefire. Even though we know that there were ongoing ceasefire negotiations, even though Biden is on TV criticizing Netanyahu for standing in the way of ceasefire negotiations. But these people are literally running with propaganda that was spoon-fed to them from a Russian oligarchy-owned news station whose whole agenda was to change the narrative concerning the pro-Palestine movement amongst the Democratic Party. These people have made it abundantly clear that they prefer people like Donald Trump in power. Why do they prefer people like Donald Trump in power? Well, because Trump Gaza becomes a reality. And also the targeting of Palestinians, the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, not just in Gaza, but the West Bank and East Jerusalem. You see, when Biden signed that executive action on February 1st of 2024, that's when a lot of these attitudes towards the Biden administration started to shift. Because that Biden signed executive action allowed Palestinians, specifically in the West Bank, to seek some sort of justice from the Biden State Department when their homes were being targeted by these violent Israeli settlers. And on the first day, Trump got rid of that executive action. And the clear difference that TikTok leftists, like Torre, who does no research, just reads headlines, does no research to figure out why you're being spoon-fed this information. What they don't realize is there are alliances in the Democratic caucus that don't exist at all in the Republican caucus when it comes to the pro-Palestine movement. So why are TikTok leftists targeting the Stop the Oligarchy tour? Well, because the news station that they're receiving their propaganda from, again, is owned by a Russian oligarch that prefers Donald Trump in the White House. They literally pick Donald Trump to be their nominee, to be their voice in the United States. Donald Trump is their puppet. So any condemnation of Donald Trump is actively condemning them. So what do leftists do? Well, TikTok leftists, because they're looking for that confirmation and they don't do any research outside of the headlines that they read, act as the willful idiots of the oligarchy that they consistently pretend that they want to dismantle. If they are being spoon-fed propaganda that condemns Joe Biden, they will trust that source, even if it's condemning people that they claim to stand in solidarity with. They don't actually want to dismantle anything. That's why they're so easily swayed by propaganda. Everything about TikTok leftists is likes and views. They don't actually care about dismantling anything. They just want followers, likes, and views. Everything about them is performative. And the sooner we realize this about TikTok leftists, the full revolutionary kind, we can move on and actually fix things in this country. Because we will realize that a lot of these people are useful idiots. Yeah, useful idiots. Especially ones that call themselves investigative journalists and never investigate shit.
Breaking. Biden never called for a ceasefire. American leftists are running with this talking point all up and down my FYP. But unfortunately, they're running with potential misinformation stemming from a dubious quote by Bibi's former ambassador to the US. If the Biden admin never called for or demanded a ceasefire, that seems like it would be big news. So you would think big news sources would be the ones breaking it. But all I can find outside of TikTok is an article from Middle East Monitor and tweets from Dropsite News. And Middle East Monitor's source are the tweets from Dropsite. And already, the way this is laid out is intentionally misleading, because it says, report, Biden officials admit they never pressured IS for ceasefire, as IS leaders boast of playing Washington. Then it has a quote from former IS ambassador Michael Herzog. Now I think a lot of people are going to read this very quickly and think this was a quote from the US ambassador to IS, which would be a Biden official. But Michael Herzog is not a Biden official. He was a Bibi official. He was the IS ambassador to the US. Now let's read the part of the quote that everyone is misquoting together. The administration never came to us and said, ceasefire now. Do you notice that ceasefire now is in quotes? Meaning the admin never directly said the phrase ceasefire now? That doesn't mean they never called or demanded or tried to negotiate a ceasefire. And when you read through it, there's a lot of talk about Bibi specifically making things difficult for the Biden admin during negotiations. And what were those negotiations? Ceasefire negotiations. But Dropsite News conveniently never says ceasefire negotiations. The only time they say ceasefire are the tweet headings and in that misleading quote. And when you read these tweets, there is literally nothing in this that is new information except for that one quote from Michael Herzog. Everything in this thread is Dropsite News' English translation highlights from IS Channel 13 special, All the President's Men, which was broadcasted in Hebrew. For some context, IS Channel 13 is an independent IS news station, and it's not Bibi's favorite channel. If you look at the thread, Dropsite News already had to issue one clarification. So who knows what other things they could have mistranslated or misinterpreted in this thread. For the past 2 years, American pro-Pally lefties have been telling everyone to take reports from IS news stations and quotes from IS government officials with the biggest grain of Dead Sea salt. But now, you're misrepresenting an obviously suspect quote from one of Bibi's former officials because it allows you to talk shit about Biden and Harris again. Lefties on this app call everything they disagree with a psyop, but they can't even see an obvious one because they want it to be true. Like, please think for 2 seconds here. Ceasefire now is in quotes. And considering ceasefire now is a popular slogan of the pro-Pally movement, it would make sense if the Biden admin purposefully avoided using that phrase in any communications with IS. Also, we know Bibi stalled negotiations on multiple fronts to keep in favor with the orange guy. Dropsite News even mentions that in their Twitter thread. The orange guy is putting out merch for a 2028 run, and it seems like Harris is also gearing up for a 2028 run. Would it not be in IS's best interest to continue to stoke resentment against Biden, Harris, and the Democratic Party to keep the orange guy and Republicans in power? Like, please, let us learn fucking anything from the 2024 election. I swear, the CIA and Mossad do not need to spend a fucking dime on propaganda when you guys will work overtime for internet clout. Now, if it comes out from a more reputable news source that you guys were right, then you guys were right. And I'll have no problem admitting that I was wrong. I just don't think it's a good idea to continue to spread inflammatory and controversial misinformation just because y'all want to talk shit about people who aren't even in power.
Surprise! A former Israeli ambassador to the United States is on record stating that Joe Biden did nothing to negotiate the ceasefire. Actually, praise God for his negligence. So if you were one of the people who believed Joe Biden and the Democrats when they said they were working for a ceasefire, you're one of two things. The first, naive to the point of being a little stupid, which is forgivable. The second, which is unforgivable, is a willfully ignorant liberal. Choose one. Y'all have been gaslighting socialists for over a year. And the gag is, you didn't even need to be socialist to understand that the Democrats were lying. You didn't even need to understand imperialism for real. You simply had to look at their words versus their actions, and even still, that was too much for some of y'all. Now that we know their efforts were fake, they were lying to us, we have to ask, why didn't they lie harder? Like, yes, obviously it's because they had no intention of changing the regime, but if the election was on the line, why not just lie harder? Why not co-opt the Free Palestine movement similar to how they co-opted the Black Lives Matter movement? And that's because they can't afford to. Free Palestine is one of the most widely accepted decolonial phrases and calls to actions we have seen in decades. That's why they work so hard to control how we speak about it. Because the ruling class cannot afford to cozy up next to a movement that is in complete contradiction to how they maintain power. It's similar to why you don't hear Bernie Sanders say we need revolution like he did in 2015. The whole narrative had to change. Because revolution is not just a buzzword. It means something. It's a call to action. That's why so many Bernie bros turned into actual socialists while he stagnated for 10 years. Because in order to free Palestine, a revolution is necessary. In order for that revolution to liberate all and combat the capitalist contradictions, it has to be done in a socialist fashion.
Joe Biden never called for a ceasefire. It never happened one time. Do we all not live in the same planet where the internet exists? Do we all not live on the same planet where the internet exists? You guys literally, when Joe Biden announced the ceasefire, you same propagandist, you guys literally were trying to attribute it to Trump and saying, oh, look, Trump only had to say a word and now look, a ceasefire's here. We literally watched you guys try to find a way to give Trump credit because you didn't like Biden that much. Did Biden not at all pressure Israel how he should after calling for these ceasefires and initiating these ceasefires? And then when they were still going against them, did he not apply enough pressure then? Of course. That's why everybody, including myself, did not support or agree with him. But using your source for the claim as Israel, the people that you guys have painted as notorious liars for the last 2 years who don't tell the truth about anything, you guys' primary source for Joe Biden never calling for a ceasefire when we literally all watched the shit happen is the same people that are committing the genocide that you're against. Seriously? Like, I cannot believe that you guys cannot do anything without trying to find a way to criticize or demonize Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Like, it would have been different if you said Joe Biden didn't put enough pressure after the ceasefires were called for to get Israel to stop. But it doesn't hit the same when you say, oh yeah, Joe Biden did do the thing that we're claiming he didn't. It's just that Israel, the people that we're using to support our claim, didn't hold up their end of the bargain. This is like literally insane that these same educated people cannot do source verification and then you guys can't stay consistent on your points. Like, the fact that I'm even having to make this video is insane.
For non-anti-black people, what black people are asking for isn't a step too far. It's actually something that's a default for them. They can look at what black people are saying when they say we don't tolerate anti-blackness and actively condemn it and say, you're right. We don't tolerate anti-blackness either because we shouldn't allow anti-blackness to foster in our movement. And that's why I've been noticing a lot more Palestinians coming across my FYP condemning anti-blackness that has attached itself to their movement because they're realizing that we are fighting against the same system, white supremacy. You see, white supremacy is the reason why Palestinians are being dehumanized by Western nations, why they're being seen as collateral damage by the United States. And the same is true of racism. When racism and anti-blackness fosters, it's because those people don't view black people as human. They don't think that we can have nuanced conversations and thinking because we're so uneducated. They don't take into account that we were brought to the Western world as literal fucking property due to that racist Western nation imperialistic view that we are not human. And even with anti-Semitism, the same is true of that. They didn't view Jewish people as human enough to protect them, to value what they had to say, to the point where they even attempted to ethnically cleanse and genocide them also. We are all fighting the same system of oppression. And usually when I see anti-blackness, it's usually coming out of the face of a white leftist or a black leftist that wants some sort of proximity to that white leftist group. We don't gain anything from allowing them to be anti-black. We actually lose a lot. We lose solidarity. We lose unity. We lose hope that we can trust each other. And when we lose that hope that we can trust each other,
So
We're
this
not
are
able to fight against these systems that are oppressing and ethnically cleansing and devaluing and dehumanizing all of us. We're all fighting against the same system. And what I want these non-black people to understand about black people is we get it. We 100% get what you're going through, because we've gone through it. We're still going through it. Look at Congo and Sudan. No one ever talks about that genocide. But I can look at what's happening in Palestine, what's happening to my people here in the United States, what happens to my people in Puerto Rico, what happens to the Rohingya in Myanmar as they're being ethnically cleansed, and no one is talking about that. No one's talking about what's going on with all of those people. And I can understand the reason why these things are happening is due to the same system that has dehumanized us for decades, for centuries even. And that's white supremacy. We have to, we must acknowledge each other when we are actually being right about something. You should not make excuses for anti-blackness. There is no excuse for allowing a system of oppression to persist in your social justice movement and being surprised that the people that are the target of that system of oppression want nothing to do with you. So I stand 10 toes down in this belief that we shouldn't engage with leftist TikTok, these perpetually online faux revolutionary types that never read beyond headlines, never do any independent research to figure out why things are the way they are. They live in a perpetual state of theory. They don't live in reality. So one of the leftists dropped down into the comment section of my video, because you know they're all over the place. They never can focus on the topic at hand when we are talking about something and calling them to the carpet about the fuck shit that they're allowing in their circle. They never want to focus on the topic at hand. Now, I had a couple of people drop down to my comment section and talk about the idea of upholding capitalism, and any upholding of capitalism is inherently anti-black, while they simultaneously make excuses for anti-black leftists that they surround themselves with. And when I see comments like that, I often will delete it, because you're not anti-racist if you're excusing anti-blackness. But the ones that always get me annoyed more than anything, because I see them do this all the time, is how they deflect to the 2016 election and the Democrats rigging the election in favor of Hillary Clinton. Now, what this tells me about a lot of leftists is they don't actually look into why things happen the way they happen, what the actual facts are from that situation, why things are the way they are. Now, I made the point that I'm going to make in this video again when we were having the election and the Democrats chose Kamala Harris as their nominee without holding a primary to choose her as the nominee. And these leftists who never read anything beyond a title or a headline were saying that this was unconstitutional. So I'm going to say this again. There's absolutely no obligation for the National DNC and RNC to have a primary. They literally could choose their candidate without casting one vote, without allowing one vote in the primary. And here's where the history lesson begins. There have been 4 major eras in primary history. The Congressional Caucus era was not an era where they allowed a popular vote. The caucus, the Congressional Caucus, meaning representatives from the 2 parties, chose the party nominee. That would be the equivalent of the House of Representatives, all of the representatives from the Democratic and Republican caucus choosing the Democratic and Republican nominee for president. The caucus and convention era, this was a mixed caucus and convention era, and in the convention, the candidate was chosen by the members of the convention, these select few party leaders that were called to the convention to choose the party's nominee. That would be something akin to party leaders choosing delegates to choose the party's nominee. Not a popular vote, a delegate chosen by the party to choose the party's nominee. Actually, the first time we saw a primary was in the state of Florida in 1901. This was a Florida primary. This wasn't a national choose the president primary. This was a Florida primary. In this era, we saw states, not the majority of them, that kept going back and forth between the mixed primary and the caucus era. And it wouldn't be until 1972 that the national binding primary era began. That's how we choose the president now. And this era that began in 1972, think about how long ago that was. Not very long, because I was born in 1979. And this time, this was the first time 1972, that voters participated in a presidential primary to choose the party's nominee. Once again, there is no constitutional obligation for the Republicans or the Democrats to have presidential primaries. They can actually choose their candidate for their party's ticket without having one vote casted in the primary. How does this play into the 2016 election and how leftists keep throwing this in the face of Democratic voters? Well, one, because they don't read into what actually happened. They're using what they think happened to justify the argument that they're making. They'll focus on the fact that the Democrats apologized, but the Democrats actually apologized because of the optics of what was going on, not because they believe that they did anything wrong. Again, because there is no constitutional obligation on the political parties, i.e. the DNC and the RNC, they actually can be partial to who they choose to be the party's nominee. And if you look into what these people were discussing on this email when it came to Bernie Sanders running as a Democratic nominee, they had legitimate concern. Bernie is not a Democrat. He is an independent who chose to run for the Democratic nomination for president. I like this breakdown from Vox because it actually breaks down who actually benefited and who actually didn't benefit from the rigging of the election in 2016. And when they talk about who didn't benefit from the rigging, Bernie is not one of those that's named. What people need to understand about the 2016 election is the party went along with what the voters wanted. The party knew that the voters wanted Hillary Clinton to be the nominee. So they put a lot of weight in her being the nominee for the Democratic Party. And if you see, Bernie actually benefited from this rigging more than any other candidate that was running against Hillary in 2016. He was not that hurt by the rigging of this election because he would have lost anyway. One only needs to look at how much Hillary beat everybody else by in the Democratic primary. She demolished Bernie Sanders, even without one superdelegate, because that's also something that they point to. Without the superdelegates, Hillary would have beat Bernie Sanders by 230 delegates. And she also beat him by 3 million votes in the Democratic primary, more than she beat Donald Trump by in the presidential election that year. I continue to stand by this belief that a lot of leftists are so stuck in this belief that everything is stolen from them, and they never take into account that they have done nothing to it. The idea that Bernie would have won the Democratic nomination if not for the Democrats rigging the election in favor of Hillary Clinton ignores empirical data that says that that's not true. Ignores the fact that the overwhelming majority, 3 million more, Democratic voters wanted Hillary to be the nominee, went to the polls, and voted for Hillary Clinton. And what I realized with a lot of leftists is they put a lot of stock in just filling up arenas and not voting booths, because that's where it counts. It doesn't matter if they show up at a rally if you're not showing up at the polls. So to summarize, no, I don't think the Democrats owe Bernie an apology in 2016 as someone that voted for Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. I don't think that people understand that the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party is obligated to have a primary and they can choose their candidate on their own without casting one primary vote. And I wish you leftists would actually read sometimes, beyond the headlines and the conspiracy theories that you look to confirm your biases.
When they say liberals, they mean black. When they lie, it's hyperbole. So when liberals are laughing at the limbs of babies and liberals want all pallies to, that's hyperbole.
This is all I got from this video, and I think these people are really going wild because now it's a liberal. I don't know why they always look for. I don't know if you all remember so far that black people are being called liberal, right? Now let me tell us something. You and I can remember that almost of these videos I brought them here during the period that Joe Biden was calling for ceasefire and all that, which I will still look for a video to attach to it so you all can see the video, because they have been looking for every means to blame black people for supporting Kamala Harris. Now, people that are looking for every means to blame black people are not blaming this administration for what they are doing already to people and also to Gaza. How come that the past administration are still blamed, or the past administration is being blamed for whatever that is going on with Palestinians and people in Gaza? This doesn't make any sense. I understand that majority of you are anti-black, which is okay. It's obvious. It shows. But can you people just do yourself good and go out there and do what people that are in their right senses are supposed to do. Because you all cannot come out every day, blame black people for literally everything. Like, they blame even black people for voting the right candidate, for doing the right thing. You and I can see what has been going on so far since this administration started, and how life has become really very tough for everybody. Literally everybody. Even the people that did the right thing, that voted right, and all that are still going through it. I don't know if that does make sense. So how come? How come black people are still being blamed for everything? I think you all should just get a life, because at this point in time, it is given I am obsessed with black people, or I cannot do anything without mentioning their name. And seeing all these black people running around, the fact that all these black people that are pro-Palestinian, pro-Palestine, pro-Palestine, they don't even, I don't force people to talk about what is going on in other countries, but I expect black people to be at the forefront of whatever that is going on when it comes to people that look like them too. The same way I am saying Africans speak up or talk about what is going on with my own people, right? But it is not a force to talk about it. Or the same way I expect them to talk about what is going on in black community. Because so far you all can see that black community, I mean, like, it has not been the very best so far, because they've been poking, they are not talking about it. So what are you trying to tell me, that you are so passionate about other people, but you also do not talk about what is going on in your own community? I don't know, but this is how I feel it. This is how I feel. So feel free to let me know what you think, and bye for now.